Mariah was seconds from saying, "I do," when her dog suddenly snapped, charging through the aisle like he sensed something no one else could. The guests froze, and what happened next shattered the entire ceremony. Before we proceed, drop your locations in the comments right now, and when this story ends, rate it from 0 to 10. Set? Let's dive in. The morning light filtered through the lace curtains of Mariah Johnson's childhood bedroom, casting delicate patterns across the hardwood floor. She sat before the antique vanity mirror, studying her reflection with a mixture of excitement and something she couldn't quite name. Her dark hair was already pinned in elegant waves, her skin glowing with careful makeup that enhanced her natural beauty. The ivory wedding gown hanging behind her shimmered like a promise waiting to be kept. Today, she would marry Evan Lewis. The thought should have filled her with pure joy. Instead, there was a flutter of unease buried somewhere beneath her ribs, a feeling she kept pushing down, dismissing as pre-wedding jitters. Behind her, Billy paced. The sleek Doberman's nails clicked rhythmically against the floor, back and forth, back and forth. His muscular frame was tense, ears pinned flat against his skull. Every few seconds, he would pause to stare at Mariah with those intelligent brown eyes, then resume his anxious patrol.
"Billy, sweetheart, you're making me nervous,"
Mariah said softly, turning to look at him. He whined, a low, desperate sound that made her chest tighten. The door burst open, and her bridesmaids flooded in, carrying champagne flutes and laughing about something that had happened downstairs. The room transformed into cheerful chaos, but Billy's demeanor didn't change. He refused the treats one bridesmaid offered, ignored the cooing attempts to calm him, and positioned himself directly between Mariah and the doorway. "He's acting so weird," her maid of honor, Stephanie, observed. "Is he sick?" "I don't know. He's been like this all morning." Then came the knock. Everyone froze. Evan's voice filtered through the door. "Can I come in, just for a second?" The bridesmaids exchanged glances. "You're not supposed to see her," someone called. I know, just want to wish her luck." Mariah felt her heart skip.
"It's fine. Let him in."
The moment the door opened and Evan Lewis stepped inside, tall and handsome in his tuxedo, his smile bright and easy, Billy erupted. The Doberman lunged forward with a ferocious bark that shook the room, straining against Mariah's desperate grip on his collar. His lips pulled back, revealing sharp teeth, his entire body trembling with protective fury. "Billy, stop it!" Mariah's voice cracked as she struggled to hold him back. Evan stumbled backward, hands raised, forcing a laugh that sounded tight and brittle. "Whoa, buddy, it's just me." But Billy didn't relent. His eyes stayed locked on Evan, a low growl rumbling from deep in his chest.
"I'm so sorry,"
Mariah said, face flushed with embarrassment.
"I don't know what's gotten into him."
"It's okay." Evan's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "Wedding day stress, right? I'll see you at the altar." He left quickly. Billy immediately calmed, but he didn't move from his position blocking the doorway. When Mariah tried to step past him toward her dress, he shifted his body, gently but firmly, keeping himself between her and the exit. Stephanie laughed nervously. "Guess someone doesn't want to give you away." But as Mariah looked down at Billy's worried face, a small seed of doubt took root in her mind. What was he trying to tell her? The next hour passed in a blur of hairspray and champagne toasts. Mariah's bridesmaids fluttered around her like colorful birds, adjusting the delicate lace sleeves of her gown, perfecting the cascading train that pooled at her feet. In the mirror, she watched herself transform into the bride she'd always imagined, radiant, elegant, ready to step into her new life. But Billy wouldn't leave her side. He pressed against her legs, warm and solid, his eyes tracking every movement in the room. When Stephanie mentioned Evan's name while recounting a funny rehearsal dinner story, Billy's head snapped up. A low growl rumbled from his chest. "Billy, enough," Mariah said firmly, though her voice wavered. The memory surfaced unbidden. 3 weeks ago, late at night. She'd woken to find Evan's side of the bed empty, heard his muffled voice through the bathroom door. When she'd asked about it the next morning, he'd waved it off. "Just work stuff. You know how demanding the foundation is." The Patriot Hands Foundation, Evan's charity work with veterans. It was one of the things she'd admired most about him. Then there was last Tuesday. She'd come home early to find him shoving papers into his briefcase, his face flushed, his hands trembling slightly. "Hey, didn't expect you back so soon." His smile had been too bright, too quick. "Everything okay?" "Perfect. Just organizing some donation receipts." Billy had growled at him that day, too. Evan had laughed it off, but Mariah noticed how he'd kept his distance from the dog, how his jaw had tightened. She shook her head, banishing the thoughts. Wedding stress. That's all it was. Evan was managing a major fundraising campaign, planning a wedding, preparing for their honeymoon. Of course he was distracted. A car horn blared outside. "The limo's here!" one of the bridesmaids squealed. Billy bolted to the window, pressing his nose against the glass. His whining grew louder, more desperate, his paws scrabbling at the windowsill. "Someone needs to take him to the handler," Stephanie said. "He can't be this worked up at the cathedral." Mariah knelt beside Billy, careful not to wrinkle her gown. She cupped his face in her hands, looking into those worried eyes. "I know you're anxious, buddy, but I'll see you soon, okay? You're walking me down the aisle, remember?" Billy licked her hand, then whined again, a sound so mournful it made her throat tighten. As her father arrived to escort her to the car, Mariah moved toward the door. Billy shot forward, trying to push past her legs, trying to force his way out first. "Whoa, boy!" Her father caught Billy's collar. "Easy there." The Doberman twisted, barking frantically as Mariah stepped into the hallway. The last thing she saw before the door closed was Billy's face pressed against the gap, his eyes locked on hers, warning her, begging her. But she didn't understand. Not yet. The cathedral rose before her like something from a dream, Gothic arches reaching toward heaven. Stained glass windows scattering jeweled light across stone floors. Mariah stepped from the limousine, her train flowing behind her like water, and paused to take it all in. Rows of white roses lined the entrance. Inside, she could hear the gentle murmur of 200 guests settling into their seats. This was it. The moment she'd been planning for months. So why did her hands feel like ice? Through the open doors, she caught a glimpse of Evan standing at the altar. Even from this distance, she could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he tugged at his collar. His face looked pale under the soft cathedral lighting, a sheen of sweat visible on his forehead. Wedding nerves, she told herself again. Just nerves. A commotion erupted near the side entrance. A frazzled-looking handler rushed toward Mariah's father, his leash dangling empty from his hand. "I'm so sorry. The dog got loose. He was fine 1 second, then he just bolted." Mariah's stomach dropped. "Billy?" "He ran toward the cathedral. We're trying to find him now." Her father squeezed her shoulder. "Don't worry. They'll locate him before the ceremony starts." But Mariah couldn't shake the image of Billy's face pressed against the bedroom door, those desperate eyes boring into hers. What had she seen there? Fear? Urgency? A warning. Inside the cathedral, whispers rippled through the gathered guests. An elderly woman in the third pew leaned toward her companion. "I swear I just saw a massive black dog circling the parking lot. Looked agitated." Near the altar, Evan's best man, Marcus, whispered something that made Evan's jaw clench. His response was sharp, barely audible but venomous enough that Marcus stepped back, hands raised in surrender. For just a moment, Evan's carefully maintained smile cracked, revealing something raw and desperate underneath. The wedding coordinator appeared at Mariah's side, clipboard in hand, professional smile plastered across her face. "We're ready when you are. Your father will escort you, and we've arranged for Billy to join you halfway down the aisle, assuming they find him in the next few minutes." Mariah nodded, not trusting her voice. The heavy wooden doors stood before her now. Beyond them, organ music swelled, the opening notes of her processional. The coordinator signaled. The doors began to swing open, revealing the length of the aisle, the sea of faces turning toward her, and at the far end, Evan. Waiting. Mariah took her father's arm, her bouquet trembling in her grip. Somewhere in the distance she heard barking, deep, frantic, desperate. "Billy!" The music crescendoed. Her father took the first step forward, and Mariah followed, walking toward a future that was about to shatter into pieces. The first 3 steps felt surreal, floating through filtered light, every eye in the cathedral fixed on her. Mariah's heart hammered against her ribs as her father guided her forward. Evan's face came into sharper focus with each step, that strained smile, those darting eyes. Then, bang! The doors behind them exploded inward with a thunderous crash. Billy charged down the aisle like a missile, his powerful body moving with terrifying purpose. His barking shattered the sacred silence, fierce, primal, relentless. The sound echoed off the vaulted ceiling, reverberating through stone and stained glass. Gasps erupted across the pews. Women clutched their chests, hands flying to their mouths in shock. Men half rose from their seats. A child started crying. Cameras swung toward the commotion, capturing everything. Mariah froze, her train pooling around her feet. "Billy!" But the Doberman didn't slow. He skidded to a halt directly between her and Evan, his muscular frame planted like a barrier, hackles raised, teeth bared. His barking grew more frantic, more desperate, his entire body vibrating with protective fury. Evan's face went from pale to crimson. "Get that animal out of here," he shouted, his voice cracking. "Someone get him out now!" Billy's response was a growl so deep and primal it seemed to come from the earth itself. He took 1 step forward. His eyes locked on Evan with laser focus. Not aggression, recognition. "Billy, what are you doing?" Mariah's voice trembled. She reached toward him, but he didn't look at her. His entire attention remained fixed on the man at the altar. The guests erupted into chaos. People stood on the pews trying to see better. Phones emerged from purses and pockets recording the mayhem. The wedding coordinator gestured frantically at ushers, who hesitated, clearly unwilling to approach the snarling dog. Mariah stood paralyzed in her wedding gown, caught between the dog she loved and the man she was about to marry while 200 witnesses watched her perfect day disintegrate. And Billy kept barking, warning her, protecting her, stopping her from making the biggest mistake of her life. Before anyone could move, Billy lunged. Not at Evan's face. Not at his hands. At his tuxedo jacket. The Doberman's teeth sank into the fabric with surgical precision, tearing through the inner lining in one violent pull. The sound of ripping cloth cut through the chaos like a blade. Something small and dark flew from the torn pocket. It hit the marble floor with a sharp crack, spinning in a tight circle under the stained glass light before coming to rest in the center of the aisle. A flash drive. The cathedral fell into suffocating silence. Everyone stared at the tiny object gleaming on the floor. Mariah's breath caught in her throat. Her father's grip on her arm tightened. A woman pushed through the crowd of bridesmaids. Elena, Mariah's cousin, her sharp eyes already analyzing. She worked in cybersecurity, spent her days tracking digital fraud. She bent down, picking up the drive with careful fingers. Her face went pale. "This is a secure vault XK9, Elena said, her voice cutting through the silence. "These aren't sold in stores. They're military-grade encryption drives used for sensitive financial transfers." She looked up at Evan, her expression hardening. The kind used in federal fraud investigations. Whispers exploded through the pews like wildfire. Evan's face drained of all color. Sweat poured down his temples. His hands trembled visibly at his sides. That's not... I don't know where that came from. But his voice cracked. His eyes darted toward the exit, then back to the drive, then to Mariah. Trapped. Billy stood his ground, no longer barking, but still positioned protectively between Mariah and Evan, his intelligent eyes watching the groom with unwavering focus. Mariah's world tilted, her vision blurred at the edges. The flash drive seemed to glow in Elena's palm, small but devastating.
Evan,
She whispered, her voice breaking.
what is that?
He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came, only the sound of his rapid, panicked breathing. And in that moment, Mariah knew. Billy had been right all along. Two men in dark suits emerged from the back pews, moving with quiet authority through the stunned crowd. Badges glinted as they flashed them toward the altar. "Federal agents," the taller one announced, his voice cutting through the whispers. "Mr. Lewis, we need you to stay exactly where you are." Evan's face twisted with panic. He took a stumbling step backward, eyes darting toward the side exit. "This is insane. I don't know what..." Billy moved like lightning, positioning himself to block Evan's escape route. A low, warning growl rumbled from his chest. The second agent reached Elena, examining the flash drive with practiced efficiency. His expression hardened. "Secure Vault XK9. Matches the encryption signature from the Patriot Hands Foundation investigation." He looked directly at Evan. "We've been monitoring your financial activities for 3 months, Mr. Lewis." The cathedral erupted. Guests rose from their seats, voices overlapping in shocked exclamations. Someone shouted, "The Veterans Charity!" A man in the fourth row pulled out his phone, already dialing. Mariah's aunt began crying loudly. Mariah stood frozen, her bouquet slipping from trembling fingers and hitting the floor with a soft thud. Tears streamed down her face, cutting through carefully applied makeup.
Evan,
She choked out, her voice breaking. "Tell me this isn't real. Tell me they're wrong." He turned to her, mouth opening and closing like a drowning man gasping for air. Sweat soaked through his expensive tuxedo. His hands shook violently. "Mariah, please. I can explain." "Explain what?" Her voice rose, raw with betrayal. "Explain the flash drive? Explain why federal agents are at our wedding?" Billy moved to her side, pressing against her legs, grounding her as her world collapsed. Evan reached toward her desperately. "If we just get married today, the assets, we can figure this out together." The words hung in the air like poison. Mariah staggered backward, understanding crashing over her in devastating waves. He never loved her. He was using her. The agent's hand moved toward his cuffs. "Mr. Lewis, you need to come with us." "Wait! Wait!" Evan's voice cracked, desperation pouring out like a dam breaking. His composure shattered completely. "You don't understand. I was fixing it. I just needed more time." "Evan, stop talking," Marcus hissed from behind him. But Evan couldn't stop. The words tumbled out in a frantic rush, his face contorted with panic and rage. "The Patriot Hands Foundation. Yes, okay? The donations. They weren't all going where they were supposed to. Offshore accounts, cryptocurrency conversions." He ran shaking hands through his hair. "But I was going to put it back. I just needed a few more days." Gasps rippled through the cathedral. Someone screamed. Mariah's father lunged forward, but the agents blocked him. Evan's wild eyes locked on Mariah. "That's why we had to get married today. Don't you see?" "Joint assets, marital protections. The lawyers said if we were legally married before the indictment..." They couldn't seize everything. I could protect us both. Each word felt like a blade twisting deeper into Mariah's chest. Us? She whispered, her voice hollow. You mean you? You were protecting yourself. I love you, he shouted, but it rang false, desperate. This was supposed to work. Everything was perfect until that damn dog. Billy's growl intensified, hackles raised. Suddenly, everything clicked into place for Mariah. The late-night phone calls, the rushed wedding timeline. Evan's insistence they get married before his big fundraising event concluded. The way he'd avoided introducing her to his financial advisors. And Billy, sweet, loyal Billy, who had tried to warn her at every turn. The pacing, the whining. The positioning himself between them, the fixation on Evan's jacket where the drive was hidden. He knew, Mariah breathed, looking down at her Doberman. You knew the whole time. Billy pressed closer, his warmth the only solid thing in her crumbling world. Evan pointed a shaking finger at the dog. That animal ruined everything. No, Mariah said, tears streaming freely now. He saved me. The handcuffs clicked around Evan's wrists with cold finality. You have the right to remain silent. The agent's voice faded into background noise as Evan was guided down the aisle. The same path Mariah had walked moments before with such hope. He didn't look back at her. The cathedral doors closed behind him with a hollow thud that echoed through the cavernous space. Then, silence. 200 guests sat frozen, unsure whether to move, to speak, to leave. Mariah's legs gave out. She crumpled to the marble floor, her ivory gown pooling around her like fallen petals. Sobs tore from her chest, raw, guttural sounds of grief and betrayal. Stephanie and Elena rushed to her side, but Mariah couldn't hear their comforting words. Everything felt distant, underwater. Then Billy was there. He approached slowly, carefully, his massive head lowered. No more barking. No more frantic energy. Just a quiet, steadfast presence. He pressed his nose against her hand, then gently rested his head on her lap. Mariah wrapped her arms around his neck, burying her face in his warm fur. You tried to tell me, she whispered brokenly. Every single time you tried to warn me. The pacing on her wedding morning, the growling when Evan entered her room, the desperate whining at the window. The way he'd positioned himself between them over and over like a living shield. I'm so sorry I didn't listen. Billy's tail gave a small wag. His brown eyes, so intelligent and knowing, gazed at her with nothing but love and forgiveness. Her father helped her to her feet, supporting her weight as they moved toward the exit. The guests parted silently, some crying, others still in shock. Outside, the limousine waited, decorated with ribbons and flowers for a celebration that would never happen. Mariah climbed inside and Billy jumped in beside her, settling his solid warmth against her side. As the car pulled away from the cathedral, she held him close, devastated, humiliated, but safe, because Billy had never stopped protecting her. 5 days after the wedding that never was, Mariah sat at her kitchen table surrounded by legal documents and news articles with headlines that made her stomach turn. Groom arrested at altar. Charity fraud exposed by loyal dog. Doberman hero saves bride from con man. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters camped outside her house. Federal investigators needed statements. Friends offered condolences that felt like pity. Elena sat across from her, laptop open, walking her through the financial evidence with gentle patience. He'd been siphoning donations for 18 months. Nearly $4 million moved through offshore accounts. She paused. If you'd married him, Mariah, your savings, your house, Everything could have been seized in asset forfeiture. Mariah's hands trembled around her coffee mug. He knew exactly what he was doing. Down to the timeline. The indictment was scheduled for next week. Billy's warm weight pressed against Mariah's legs under the table, anchoring her through the waves of nausea and rage. The days that followed fell into new rhythms. Long morning walks with Billy through the park, watching him chase squirrels with pure, uncomplicated joy. Evenings curled on the couch with him, his steady breathing a meditation. She'd canceled the honeymoon, returned the gifts, and fielded awkward conversations with relatives who didn't know what to say. But slowly, clarity emerged from the wreckage. Real love wasn't champagne toasts and expensive rings. It was Billy's brown eyes watching her with unwavering devotion. It was his body between her and danger, even when she couldn't see the threat. It was loyalty that asked nothing in return. One morning, as dawn light filtered through the kitchen window, Mariah knelt beside Billy. She cupped his face in her hands, looking into those intelligent eyes. "You saved my life," she whispered. "Not just from Evan, from a future built on lies." Billy's tail thumped softly. "I promise, I'll never ignore you again." Together they stepped outside into the golden sunrise. A new day, a new beginning. And this time, Mariah knew exactly who she could trust. Did Mariah and Billy's captivate you? Share your rating from 0 to 10 in the comments and tell us what you think. Smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you will never miss our next story.